So it didn't work, guys. I overclocked my PC to 5 gigahertz. And I did all the settings required. I loaded up the PC. It went fine. I tested it with a graphic test that I'm going to run in a second. I also benchmark tested it with another thing I'm going to show you in a second. Everything ran fine. Everything was going great. I waited like 3 hours before I even fired up the simulator. So I knew that the operating system was working at the 5 gigahertz level. And it said 5 gigahertz exactly on this. Then I loaded up P3D and loaded up first time just to get into the scenery library, and then onto the main page, and then closed it down, loaded up all my weather, and then loaded up P3D. I was monitoring it the whole time with this funky little app called Process Lasso. So I was monitoring how the processors were handling the workload, because you can set it exactly to like, I want this app to work on just these cores. And so I was monitoring it, everything was going great. And then I waited on the runway for about an hour and a half before actually going, flying. And it crashed as soon as I tried to take off. Like, I was on the runway an hour and a half, it was raining, the weather was really hectic, I was stable frames, and then started to take off and crash. I thought, oh, that's a bit bummer. So the graphics card basically ate it. And it restarted the whole computer, so I then started it up again. Tried it again, right? About to take off, and then the operating system crashed. Like, Windows just went, and computer went and restarted it. So I thought, you know what? I don't think P3D fully can handle the way I've configured it, So I went back. Now, I've done several tests, and in this video, we're going to go through a couple of tests, and you're going to see what I've done. But I've been logging my tests for the entire time. So just to give you an idea of my computer, of what we're looking at, okay? So my processor for the computer, and we're always going to be looking at these three components: the processor, the GPU, the graphics card, and then the VRAM, the memory, okay? So here, processor is an i7 series. It's the 7700 CPU, and its base speed is at 4.2 gigahertz. Okay. The memory, I've got two 8 gigabyte memory sticks, which are DDR4 type, and they have a core speed at 2400. I believe that's combined or each. I'm not sure. I think it might be each. So therefore, it's 4800. Then I've got my graphics card, which is the 1080 Ti, and its core speed is 1481, and it's 11 gig. So I've got 11 gig of video graphic memory card. I've got 16 gig of memory and 4.2 gigahertz of a processor. Now, I bought my processor from Chill Blast, okay? So when they sent it to me, it had, on the BIOS, it had two profiles. It had the baseline profile, the stock profile, okay? But then it also had one that they'd inserted called Profile 2, and it was basically where they'd ramped it to 4.7 gigahertz, okay? So, basically, what I've done is I've done a test on that. Now, I did a test without doing a stream like this, and I got higher results every time. So unfortunately, when I'm recording like this, I use a different computer, but it still has an effect on this PC. So I really haven't done a test to see if recording on this PC is any worse than streaming to another PC. I imagine recording is probably going to be a lot more intensive for the CPU, the graphics card, than streaming information over, because that's just sending data. It's not encoding it. The encoding is happening on the other PC. So anyway, here are the results. So when I did it with stock, without OBS, okay, it gave me these results, and it was pretty cool, these results. And the way I was able to test these items, let me just remove that out of the way, was through something called User Benchmark. Okay, and what User Benchmark does, it's a website that you go to, you download the free app, most of you have probably seen this, and then you run a test, and it starts to evaluate your components on your PC and gives you a percentage out of 100 as to the performance of each component. Now, I only look at 3 components. I only look at the processor, the GPU, and the memory installed. Now, where I'm up to is I did a 5 gigahertz test. It worked, but unfortunately it didn't work in the sim, so that's no good to me. So I dialed it back down, and I did various other tests, and I'm just going to quickly go through them now, and then we're going to fire up the benchmark testing. So I did a 4.8 gigahertz test without OBS, and these were the results I got. So my CPU was running at 109%. My NVIDIA graphics card was running at 163% for performance, and my memory was 73%. So that's without OBS, which is this little funky device here, which is how I stream and record to YouTube. So without OBS, these were the results I got, and it sort of gives you an average, which for a gaming PC, my performance is at 130%. So that's better than average. As a desktop, it's 105, and as a workstation, which is pretty much probably what Flight Simulation More is for, 87%. That's without running OBS. Now, when I did run OBS, these I haven't actually done, that test without OBS. The test I have done without OBS and with OBS is when I did the stock. So when I had the stock, so the graphics card was 4.2, when it basically was running at these speeds only, okay? So my CPU was running at 4.2, my graphics card was running at 1400, and my memory at 4800, okay? Then without OBS, I got 125% on the game. I got 97 on the desktop and 77 on the workstation. So, but the thing with overclocking is not every CPU is built exactly the same. There can be slight deficiencies in one that make it different from another. So you could get 2 of exactly the same CPUs in 2 identical PCs, and one could overclock better than the other, and that's just nature of the beast. Now, I even did it overclocked to 5 gigahertz, and these were what I got. So when it was 5 gigahertz, my CPU was running at 111% or 112. My graphics card was 162%. My memory was running at 73%. Without OBS, when it was overclocked to 5 gigahertz, let's look at just the CPU, 112%, okay? And at stock, it runs at 95%, so just under its full maximum, right? Potential. Obviously, it's exceeding its potential when I ramped up to 5 gigahertz. But what was interesting is when I ramped up to 4.8 gigahertz, 109%. Now that is literally only 3% off, right? And, or I mean, if you want to get, I suppose, yeah, 111 if you only look at the first 3 numbers. And this one's 109, that's only 2%, but I just gonna average that off to 112. So like the difference between 5 gigahertz and 4.8 gigahertz, very little. Okay. Now we're about to do a test where I've taken the chill blast profile of 4.7, right, applied it, gone in then and tweaked it to have the voltage settings, the RAM settings at 5 gigahertz, but then put in 4.9, so just below it. So basically an in-between of what they recommended, which was 4.7, and what it successfully ran at, but died in P3D. So 4.9 for me, you know, is what I've tried. Now, what has been successful is this one down here. In sim, it handles beautifully. It handles perfectly. It handles like a 5 gigahertz, I feel, you know. When you look at when I loaded it on the runway and looked around and saw it performing in the frames, it kind of did the same sort of thing. So I thought, well, let's try it at 4.9 and let's see what values we get. So that's what we're going to test now. So before I can run a user benchmark test, I've just got to run a graphic test to see if it's actually going to bite it when we go to do this test, because obviously I don't want to crash it. So I just have to start this up, and if this is glitchy at all, which I don't think it is, then we are good to go. I don't see any graphical glitches. That thing moves around steadily. So I'm just going to leave that running for a couple of minutes, and if it crashes off or if it freezes, then there's going to be problems. If it doesn't, then I can move on to the next stage. At the moment, I'm getting 208 frames a second on average, I'd say. It's sticking at 206 now, but it does go up to 210 at the top end, 206 at the lower end. So for me, that's 208 on average. Now, when I overclocked it to 5 gigahertz, that was running at 225 frames, okay? But 205 frames, that's okay. That's still acceptable for me, I'd say. When it was at 4.8, it pretty much was the same value. And that was a stable version for P3D. So I have a feeling, I mean, I think we're good to go here. So I can come out of that. Make sure this profile is applied. So I've overclocked my GPU and my memory. So my memory now will run at like 5,100 megahertz. And my GPU, it's only slightly overclocked. To be honest, I couldn't get much more performance out of it because it is pretty good anyway. So let's run this benchmark. Now this benchmark, you go to userbenchmark.com. It's a free app. You download it onto your your computer, and you click run. And then basically what it'll do is it'll put it through various tests. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why are you doing this, dude? Well, I joined a project recently where I want my PC running at the best it can run in order to be able to handle its workload it's going to come. So I, against all my judgment, my better judgment, I thought I need to overclock my PC, or I need to get better equipment. Now, for me, I'm a flight sim enthusiast. Okay, I love planes and I love flying in the flight sim world. I've always recommended never overclocking your machine, okay? Because of one main reason. When you overclock your CPU, you shorten its lifespan drastically. You know, instead of lasting 5 years, it may only last less than 2, maybe 2.5 if you're lucky. You'll get better performance out of it. You will get higher frame rates, you know, and it will perform better, but it will also run hotter. So you need more coolant, you need more ways of cooling it. It will also slightly run differently than what it should be doing, you know. I mean, they're designed to be overclocked at the end of the day, but you do overclock it and, you know, you're gonna shorten the lifespan. And when it dies, it could take the whole PC with it, or you might need then to replace it. And you might then go, well, I'm gonna get the latest CPU then, because one's just come out which was better. But then you now need to upgrade your motherboard, your memory, graphics card, everything then. And it's just like, the computer doesn't last as long, okay, basically, when you overclock. You know, plus you have to know what you're doing. Now, I know nothing about overclocking, guys, okay? I only know what Microsoft have taught me. I only know what I've seen in YouTube videos. All right, I really don't know anything because I never thought I would be overclocking in my life. I sort of not against it, but I don't feel it's what you get in the long run. I don't feel is valuable for what you receive in the short term. You know, in the short term, you get higher performance, you get better frame rates. In the long run, your computer can mess up quicker, it can die sooner. It's just more chances for glitches, you know? So it's like, not for me, guys. Right, so this is what happens when the tests finish. It sends you to the page where, the website, and it rates your PC, you know, and gives you scores down below here. Now we're going to go through these scores, but I just need to add the results first to my notepad here. So we have just done overclocked to 4.9 gigahertz with OBS, okay? And I just want to make a remark about OBS, right? That when I did the from the stock overclocking, so this basically I used the settings that the manufacturer gave the CPU, the memory, and the GPU, and I didn't have OBS running. As you can see, the CPU ran at 95.5%. But then when I did it with OBS, it only ran at 87.3%, which means that when I'm streaming with OBS involved and I do this test, all my results are lowered. I get less performance, but it's only by 5%, say, on average. So with my graphics card, it was running at 162%. With OBS streaming, 155%. With my memory, it was running at 74%, but with OBS, it's running at 68%. So memory doesn't take that much of a hit, but my CPU and my graphics card does. But at the end of the day, we've just run the test. The stream hasn't gone messy. You know, nothing drastically does happen. But what this means is it does affect me, like making videos in Flight Sim, you know, when I use OBS. And I've got to take that into account when I'm using my settings in Prepared, okay? Now, I did, like I said before, an overclocking test with 5 gigahertz, and without OBS, these were the results I got. Got 112 there, 162 there, 81 there, and 72.4 there. And when I overclocked to 4.8 gigahertz without OBS, the difference between the 5 gigahertz and the 4.8, which the 4.8, by the way, was stable, okay, it ran perfectly in Prepared, it wasn't that big. It wasn't that great a leap, to be honest. So when you get your results, it rates you on a gaming PC, a desktop PC, and as a workstation PC. Now, if you're flight simming, that's more that's more sort of leaning towards the workstation than either of the two. Gaming is if you're playing stuff like, you know, shooters, GTA, you know, very light games on your PC workload. Desktop is for like internet browsing, watching videos, you know, general stuff. But workstation, I mean, flight simulation is intensively heavy on your resources. It's more of a workstation thing. So it gives you a percentage score when you scroll down here, but it also tells you your PC status when compared with others who have exactly the same components as I have. So my PC is performing at 46th percentile, which means there's 100 PCs that they've collected the information from, and that they all have exactly the same components that I have. Now 54% of them are performing better than mine, which means I'm in the lower end, to be honest, which means I can get more performance out of my PC. I'm going to do a test without OBS as well on these numbers, just to see the difference. Here we go, we're back. Okay, so quickly run the test, and very interesting results. So looking at this website here, it gives me the scores here. Now, the PC status, I think it said something like 52 PCs were better when we did the test. Now it's saying out of 100, only 34 performed better. So, you know, without running OBS, this does run a lot better. So let's have a look at the stats. So 4.9 gigahertz with OBS, 4.9 without. So the benchmark tests for game with OBS running is 124%, but without it, 130%. So, okay, still a win either way. Desktop performs better without OBS. You get an extra 5% of performance. But as a workstation, it runs at 88. So my core processor runs at 101% with OBS, and without OBS runs at 113%. Oh my gosh, that is a massive difference. 12% of the CPU load for OBS. That's a massive difference in the simulator, which we're going to fire up in a second. 1080 Ti graphics card, 157% with OBS, without 161. That's not too bad. When we look at the 5 gigahertz test with that, we see we got 162%. So the graphics card runs slightly worse, but when I did it at 4.8 without OBS, my graphics card was running at 163. So my graphics card is actually running worse for some reason than when the CPU was actually down graded actually. So when I was running 4.8 gigahertz, and to be honest, I mean that's kind of what I'm running now. To be honest, it's 4.87, so that's pretty much closer to, you know. So yeah, I'm very surprised at this result here, that my GPU runs a slightly better when it's at 4.8. So I might have to change that down to 4.8. Let's look at the memory. The memory runs at 102% without OBS, and it runs at 91% with OBS. So the memory takes a big hit. But let's look at it without, when it was at 4.8 gigahertz, 105%. So far, when I had this, my settings overclocked to 4.8, my other components ran better. That's so weird. Right. So my CPU core is at 113%, and it only ran at 109%. When I was at 4.8 gigahertz. So obviously it's not running as good. That's clear, yes. But in terms of its workload, it does give me a better result at the expense of my graphics card slightly and my memory slightly. So is this worth it? Well, let's find out. But we can look at the load that Prepared puts on our system. This is everything that's running actively right now on our system, and there's Prepared, and I've set Prepared to only use cores 2 through 7. So if I go and have a look at this, yeah, it's only using these cores here. The first 2 cores aren't being used by Prepared, but I do set OBS to use them too. So it doesn't take as much taxing load on the system. But what it does is it spreads the load over the remaining cores. I mean, this tool is handy. So basically all we're going to do is we're going to get up in the plane, we're going to fly around for a bit, we're going to do a test that lasts 5 minutes of flying time. Then once we've flown around, we're in Florida as well, so we'll fly around Florida for 5 minutes if it hasn't crashed. I mean, this might crash. This might not even get beyond loading up. This might crash the computer. Still haven't tested the 4.9 gigahertz yet. But yeah. You can see the processor usage here. It's at 75% loading up everything. The memory is half, but that should go down because I do have something that resets the cache. So that should go down. Now, at the end of the day, whatever values we see in this sim, which I think I might need to turn down the audio. Okay, the audio hasn't shown up anyway, so don't worry about it. Whatever we see in this sim, in terms of its frames here, which at the moment we're getting 45 frames a second, 50 frames a second, will change because I haven't loaded in the weather, I haven't loaded in active sky. You know, it's all just default weather at the moment. But you know, in terms of frames, that's going good. Now, the scenery I'm running in the sim is Orbex Global, Orbex Land Class for North America. I'm also running Florida in terms of mega scenery and the airports as well. And I think I've got Miami X loaded in, and I've got a couple of airports in Florida loaded in as well. So the core speed 4,900 megahertz. Cool. The CPU usage is 30%ish. Oh, it's going up. 50%. So we'll see. Well, as soon as that reaches 100, the whole thing crashes. The GPU usage is at 40%, so that's not being used hardly. The core clock speed, of the GPU is 2,000. So, okay. So it's been overclocked to 2,000, but not as high as I thought it was. But the memory has been overclocked to 5,805. Its original speed was 4,800. And the RAM sticks, the memory sticks, which is what I thought that was. Oh, that's, yeah, sorry, the memory that's being used, sorry, yeah. 4 gig, basically, is being used of my memory. So, let's see going outside the cockpit. Looks alright. Plenty of frames, look at that, nice and smooth. So, that's outside the cockpit as well. 60 frames steady outside the cockpit. Lovely. We go in, we take a slight hit. We go out, we get 60. We go in, we lose like 2-3 frames. Not even worth it. Right, let's take this sucker to the air. We've waited long enough. The test is going to last 5 minutes, and we're going to see if this crashes the computer. If it does crash, all you're going to see is the screen stuck. But here I'm going to probably see a blue screen, or it'll just shut down, or who knows. But this is the moment of truth, guys. We're taking off. Wheels up. Get some altitude. It looks like we're okay. No crashes as of yet. Let's do a turn here. We'll take off and get some height. We'll turn back around. Tell you, the clouds are being given to us by Orbex. They look all right. They look okay. Frames have gone down slightly though, 30. I mean, as long as it doesn't go below 25 frames, that's to me fine, because it's still smooth. It's still, you know, smooth as butter. Right, we're at 13,000 feet. We're going 700 miles an hour, so we're actually going very fast. Let's bring that speed down a little bit. Don't think we need to climb anymore. Here we go. So, frames are okay. I'm going to fly through this cloud, see what frames do. Not too bad, not too bad. Let's look overboard. I see a bit of sticky frames there. When panning, it's not as smooth, but the frames per second are holding. Scenery is loading in perfect. It's all very nice. We seem to be dropping a little bit. I mean, sharp textures down there. It looks lovely. Now, the thing with the video, guys, is my other PC, which isn't as good as this PC, is only recording this at 720p, unfortunately. So you're not going to see the full fidelity that I can. Even though the video you're watching is 1080p, I've upscaled to 720p. So it should be a good representation, but it's going to be slightly blurrier, not as pin sharp, but you still get the same idea. Everything here is pin sharp. It's loaded in perfectly in the background. It's great. 40, 50 frames on average. Now I know I'm using default plane here, and I haven't loaded in the proper weather, but that's what the next test is for in 2 minutes time. I really need to know how to get this chase plane and this weapons thing off my screen. If anybody knows how, please let me know. It would be really nice. Right, let's do a bit of stress testing now. Let's see what it's like. Full throttle. Do some barrel rolls. Okay. I wasn't clocking the frames per second then, but I'm guessing it's okay. It was smooth. So let's go down. And the blood rushes to my face. Yeah, and pull back up. Frames are holding. Now, we're not going to be getting 50 frames, guys, when we do the next test, because the weather, even though Environment Force doesn't have that much of a substantial hit because it's run outside of the P3D program, Active Sky, again, run outside, they do have an effect on frames, and we're going to see exactly how much. I mean, to be honest, these clouds are quite nice. These clouds are from Orbex, and they're being put in by P3D. I think these are quite nice, you know. So, how accurate is our frames per second? Ooh, bit of a glitch in the matrix there. How accurate is our frames per second when you compare it to the one that P3D give you? So, this jumps about. This really does jump about. It's going in from down as low as 35 and as high as 45. Sometimes even hitting 50. Whereas this frame counter, which is actually done by the MSI, I think it's more of an average here or something, because it's not jumping as much. It's much more stable. So I don't know which one is more accurate, but I think I prefer, I don't know, I just prefer this one for some reason. I don't know. I get the feeling that because P3D is doing the processing for the simulator, its processing for the frames might be hindered a little bit. I'll tell you, the Mega Scenery scenery does look nice from up here. Well, we haven't had a crash yet with default weather and the textures and everything supplied, so I think it's time to load up the next thingy, which is add the weather. So all we got to do is it all gets integrated in, so we can add it straight away. So there's Environment Force coming in, and that will change the weather, and then Active Sky, load that up, and that will automatically change our sim. Boom, there's the difference. But just to be sort of, you know, sure about it, I can just click the Active Sky weather theme, even though Active Sky has already loaded in. Okay. And there we go. Active sky. I don't think environment force is fully loaded in yet. Yeah, it's not saying that it's loaded in. So environment force hasn't loaded in yet. I think we're gonna have to restart the sim, guys, to get this one. But you can see the frames have taken a hit. Look at that. We're down to 25 frames. I don't know why it's saying failed to load. Hang on, let me get rid of my thing here. Validation process. So we are going to shut down the sim. And we're going to restart this sucker. Right, there we go. Boom. Environment, Rex, Force, whatever you call it, is running. As is active sky. That's running, which we can verify our position on the map. Not in Australia, clearly. Where are we? We're in America. There we are. We are there. Oh, I thought we were more in Florida. We need to get over to Florida, man. Like, I know we're in Florida, but we need to get in. So, Environment Force is running. Rex is running. I won't say clouds are running. I mean, hello. The weather today. What is the? Hang on. What is the time today? Because before, let's see. Yep, it's all correct. Okay, well, 50 frames are back again. How strange. I guess when you change things in sim, things tend to bite it, I guess. I don't know. That was a bit weird. Like, I changed it in sim and the frames halved, but then if you restart and have things running, your frames go higher. Well, they're saying that, though. They're beginning to take a dip. We haven't got into the air yet, have we? So, let's see what happens when we take it to the air. Because this is a test. Right, here we go. So, sim is running with everything added. We need to head... Oh, gosh. We need to get to... Get to the chopper! We need to get to Florida is what we need to get to. 35 frames a second, you know, that's still smooth as silk for me. As you can see, it is smooth, nothing glitchy, although I'm looking at the streaming computer and I just did see a little twitch then as I glanced over, but it's running smooth on my PC here on my monitor, and I know if I didn't have OBS running, it would be running even smoother. But yeah. Are we going in the right direction to go for, hang on. Where's active sky gone? There it is. Right, no, we are going in the wrong direction. It's this way we need to go. I want to stay in Florida. I don't want to suddenly find myself outside of mega scenery land. So I think we'll just kill the speed though. We don't need to be going at like 800 miles an hour. Looking nice. Very, very nice. Oh, that was a definite glitch. That was a definite glitch in the Matrix. Right, which are we running now? Yes, that'll do, mate. In fact, what am I saying? Just stick to the coastline. Do you know what I mean? Right, so let's have a look at the numbers. Let's evaluate here. So this is our benchmark. See, it's running fine, and we're going to run it for another 5 minutes. And if it doesn't crash on us, then we know we are good to go with these settings, and we can start trying other planes and other areas of the world. So currently I'm in a default aircraft. I'm running mega scenery, full weather, Orbex Global, the land class for North America, and a couple of airports, and 45 frames steady. Like, I'm happy with that. Although, to be fair, I would like to be running just 30 frames a second, because it would make the encoding of this video so much easier. Although, actually, it doesn't matter, actually, because it's being encoded at 30 frames a second. That's why it's glitchy on there. So I'm getting 50 frames in the sim, but only 30 are getting recorded in the video. Right, that's why it's a bit stuttery. Right, yeah, I can see now the difference when I look at the two side by side. Much more smoothly, silky in the sim. But when I upscale it to 1080p, it gets 60 frames a second. So, but sadly, all those frames are lost in time, I guess. Like deers in the rain. So I guess basically we just let it run. We just have to let it run. I'm looking forward to doing tests in like PMDG aircrafts. I've got the 777 and the 737, I believe, and the DC-6. I used to have the Queen of the Skies too for FSX, and then the new one came out, Queen of the Skies 2. Or was it Queen of the Skies 2 I got, and not 737? I can't remember. It's one of them. It's either one or the other. But we're gonna load them up one day, and yeah, fly different aircrafts at different locations. Yeah, mega scenery. I much prefer to fly in mega scenery land, like at these types of altitudes, than I do in Orbex land, because Orbex is nice if you're, say, 3,000 feet above it, up to say 10,000 feet. Maybe, I mean, even 18,000 feet, it looks nice. But mega scenery looks so much better from 30,000 right down to like even 5,000. In fact, let's do a test. Let's do a test. We're gonna go down to 5,000 feet suddenly, and we're gonna see how this holds up. We're at 25,000 feet, and this is what it looks like. We're gonna go down 5,000 and see if it still looks as good. And this is all real. This is all how you see it. This is the landscape above Florida at this location. You know? It's real satellite data, this is. I think we might have to stay in this little circle bit, actually, because the weather ahead is just pants. There's the old Eglin Field, where most people probably take off from. It's the default one in P3D now. Meg's Field has been retired to FSX World, but we're gonna bring it back because I got it in Orbex. Right, we're coming down now to 11,000. So it's still 10,000 feet. I think it still looks good. Still looks respectable. We need to hit 5,000 before these clouds, though. So let's really dive bomb it. We're going like 400 miles an hour. Right, here we go. Let's begin to pull back up, and we should be at 5,000. 5,000. There we are. Okay. So this is at 5,000 feet, and do you know what? It still looks good. Look at that. These grassy bits here, I don't know if my mouse is being picked up, these look exactly like Orbex fields. I mean, this still looks good. It doesn't look as good from when we were up high, but it still looks good. I'd still have it. So this is Florida, but this isn't the recent Florida, by the way. This is Florida 4X. So this is a different version of it. Like if you buy it now, you're going to get Florida version 3. And this is like higher resolution than version 3. Although the color isn't accurate. But yeah, I'm happy with this. So yeah, winner. I mean, look at the grass there. That looks like fields. That looks like fields. Everything's nice and crisp as well. You know? No blurries. I'm loving it. Loving it. Florida gets a thumbs up. So that's how we're going to rate it, guys. That's the official rating system for our tests. Thumbs up or thumbs down. I might even do this Florida video as a separate video. So I think we're doing okay. Up, up, up. No, just a stick then. Oh, I thought it was a crash. I thought that was a crash. So there is one more test we need to do, which is one we're kind of doing right now, because we are going at Mach 1, to be honest. We're going over 900 miles an hour, right? Okay, so let's bring our speed down by traveling high. 20,000 feet. And blood rushes to our head. Oh, my life. Right, okay, so there we are. Now, there is a test I want to do to see how well texture loads, but we need to go down low for this. So what we do is we're going to gun it along the floor of the sim at about 1,000 feet off the ground, and we're going to see how well and how fast these tiles load. So what we need to do is we need to calm down, and then we're going to turn around and go the opposite way. We're still in Mega Scenery Land. We need to come down and then use all of that space behind us. Do we still get a frame increase when we do that? No. "300 miles an hour, bombing it to the earth." You know, I'm no professional pilot by any means. So this is a stable now. So, I mean, look, we're 100 megahertz off 5 gigahertz, okay? The cooling system, like, PC is pretty cool. Like, the tower is pretty cool, but it was blowing cooler when it was at 5 gigahertz, so I do need to change that, I think. There are some slight stutters every now and again, but I think that's Kim Saver. When you have Kim Saver, every 5 minutes you get a 2-second freeze up, and that's basically taking a snapshot of your sim in case of a crash. Then you can load up at exactly the same spot you were in last time. So I don't mind that little, you know, at least we know we've passed the 5-minute mark. So we're going to quickly do this last test of gunning it to see how well things load up. In terms of how much does the Mega Scenery terrain stay sharp and high resolution and in focus, or does it start to go blurry? Because at the moment, it's looking nice. 8,000, so we're going to do a little bit of a turn here. Do a slow turn. And that should bring us down. I mean, maybe 3,000 feet's enough. Let's see. I want to go to the level of just when it starts to degrade the texturing. Which I think we're on the verge of now. So yeah, we're gonna say 3,000 feet. 3,000 feet. Okay, here we go. How well will this sucker load when we are gunning it? This is the test. Okay. So everything's nice and sharp still. Looking out the window, it's still sharp, but how long does this sharpness last for? That's the test. And we're traveling up. We need to stay down. We need to stay down. Trim down, trim down. Come on, we need to stay at 2,000 feet all the time. So Slight adjustments. Sorry if you can hear the stick in the microphone. I've got the microphone literally sat next to me, sat next to the controller as well, so you're going to hear that squeaky noise. Still loading very fast, still high resolution, I think. Or is it now beginning to fall apart? Oh. Low res city. Okay, so stress testing on that one. But how well does it recover? Let's see. Let's slow it down. Takes a while. And recovers. There we go, it's recovered now. So now that we've done that, let's go at the speed we're going at down the same path. So everything's been loaded in. Now let's see if it does it again, going at a slower speed but at the same altitude. So it's all loaded back in the high resolution textures. We're going at 400 miles an hour. And we're gonna see, because at the end of the day, we're going as fast as like a 737 will be going up in the high sky. We're just down on the ground. So obviously going at Mach 1 doesn't do anything for the scenery loading, but this, so far so good. I mean, it's still high quality there. Hasn't loaded in slowly. Frames, I like the frames, they're steady. I think we're on a winner with this configuration. I need to keep the speed at 400. We seem to be slowing down to 200. And that's no good. Oh, is that a road there? Funky. Why isn't the speed going up? We need to keep the speed at 400. There we go. There we go. Still loading in quite nice, smoothly and fastly. Fastly? Is that a word? I would say that this test seems to be on a win. And I'm flying at 1,100 feet. Oh. Yep, but it's still, yeah. We're actually 750 feet now above the ground. And it's still, like, you can see here in the distance here, it's still high resolution. Obviously the oh gosh, man. So we're nearly at 500 miles an hour as well, like, and it's still loading in nice and crisp here. Yeah. And we're at 500 feet, guys. I have never seen mega scenery look this good at 500 feet consistently, traveling at nearly 500 miles an hour. Guys, this is something new for me. I don't know about you guys, but this requires a screenshot. I don't know if that information gets captured in the screenshot. Textures are still loading in just nicely. I mean, that is a win. Now let's ramp up the speed and see how fast it takes for it to eat it. So we're going faster now. Trying to keep the same level of height. We're going faster. Textures are still loading in. I think they're still loading in. Yep. They're still loading in with the same level of quality. I think we've run out of... No. Yep, I think that's it now. Is that... Yeah, that's still high quality. Guys, it's still rocking it. But we are going on. Oh, we're almost out of fuel, guys. There we go. It's, yeah, low res textures, but it soon recovers. It soon recovers. Okay, well, that's it, guys. That's the test over. In the next video, guys, we're going to load up in the same area a plane that isn't default. We're going to load up, let's see, a plane that can go high and yet go slow. Find out in the next video, guys. Take care.